Hi, my name's Londe Yusuf.
And my name is Reggie Williams.
And we're the co-founders of Black Film Space. Black Film Space is a grassroots organization dedicated to enhancing the skill sets of Black filmmakers and building a community of creatives. We host events such as screenwriting workshops, panels, mixers, and other events that are designed to support Black content creators.
In the next episode of the Black Film Space podcast, we interview Para Shardé, a makeup artist. Para has worked on Boomerang, Greenleaf, Nobody's Fool, amongst many other movies and TV shows. We talk with Para about her come up, her workflow process, tips on hiring makeup artists, and much more. And now, on to our interview. All right, Para, thank you so much for joining us on the Black Film Space podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Really excited to have you on our podcast. I think this is such an important topic to talk about, and it's also something I know very, very little about. And I kind of say that as a warning to the audience. If I ask some stupid questions, please bear with me. But yeah, really excited to have you on, talk about makeup artistry. There's so many questions. I don't know if we're going to have time to cover everything, but we will try to cover, what it's like to be a makeup artist, as well as how, makeup artists work with directors and all that. So can you tell us how you think makeup artistry supports in storytelling for film and television?
Okay. Well, just to give a little brief of me, I've been doing makeup in television and film since 2012. And I feel, or I think, or I know that makeup artistry actually helps out with telling the story from the person who wrote the script or who came up with the idea. It's very pivotal, I think, in telling the story as well. Like if somebody is supposed to be homeless, or if somebody is supposed to be attractive, or if someone is in a fight, or, if you don't add those makeup touches to help tell the story, you really won't believe the story. So I would say makeup artistry is very important and a key component when it comes to storytelling.
And you said you started doing makeup for TV in 2012.
Well, I started doing it full time in 2012. Makeup in general is something I did when I was in college. My degree is actually in television and radio broadcasting. And it was just something I did when I was in school for modeling groups and dance groups. And then when I graduated, is when the economy fell. So that sports reporting job I thought I would have, I didn't have. So I got a regular job, which is fine. Nothing wrong with the 9-to-5ers. But that's what was open and available. And I just did makeup on the weekends or when I had off days, just to stay around TV and film. I even got into acting classes just so I can be around production. I even was a PA so I can be around productions. I was an extra so I can be around, because I love it. That's what I went to school for. That's something I've always enjoyed. And I kind of fell into doing makeup for it because makeup was always something that was just fun. I did artwork since a little girl, drawing and painting. And I started doing it for music videos, and then it went from there to independent films. And then someone at an independent film gave me a shot at Tyler Perry Studios. And that was in 2012 when I worked my biggest, I guess, outside of the independent world, the actual union or the actual, on TV world was in 2012. A makeup artist by the name of Kedrick Starks gave me a chance. He was the department head at the time. But I met him working an independent film where I wasn't really getting paid, but I wanted a call sheet so I can work towards getting in the union. So
So you did some independent films. What are some differences between working on independent films and working on these big budget Hollywood sets?
The independent world may not have access to things that uh, bigger budgets may have access to, as far as um, the type of locations and food that's provided, money that's given, or payment that is given is a big difference sometimes. And then even just certain rules, like the bigger projects, there's certain rules that they have to abide by that the smaller projects may not um, have to go by, because they're not as far as like a union or things like that. So
What are some of these rules?
well, for makeup artistry, within our union, you have to make sure the person eats breakfast. If they don't, they get paid for that, not being able to eat. And they call it NDB, which is a non-deductible breakfast. And they also, the certain overtimes, how much you're getting paid after this many hours plus this many hours. When an independent film may be like, hey, we can give you $50 for the day. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You know, or we can't pay you, but we can give you credit.
mm-hmm.
Um, things like that. And my thing is, I appreciated working on independent films first, because it taught me set etiquette. It taught me reading a script. It taught me reading and understanding a call sheet. It taught me, all of those different things before going straight into the bigger atmosphere. It can seem overwhelming if that's your first thing and you don't even know what action and cut means, or you're not even knowing where it's safe to stand versus you're in the shot, you know, or to pay attention to the monitor, or what last looks mean. Last looks mean, hey, that's makeup, hair, and costume. We get to go in and fix up the actors and do our thing. Um, because I've been on these bigger projects where people is their first opportunity, their first time ever being on set is on those bigger projects. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. If your first shot is on a big project, kudos, and like I'm happy for you, because that a lot of people don't get that opportunity. But I've seen it where they don't know anything, and I'll kind of like take them under my wing and kind of show them. But working on the smaller projects first kind of helped groom me to be a little prepared or semi prepared for the bigger projects.
What do you think a fair pay is for a makeup artist on an independent project?
Hmm. Sometimes I feel like that is case by case. It's kind of hard to answer that question, because there's times even now, um, if I know the producer or I know the creator, or, and they're like, hey, Para, we really need somebody. We understand if you can't do it, but our budget X, Y, and Z. And I try to like kind of negotiate, but you can kind of get a feel for people who are trying to take advantage, or people who really, everybody is kind of in it together to help with this project. And then I just kind of decipher from there, so it's really, for me, it's kind of case by case.
But there's not like a generic or like a general rule of thumb.
No, because there's not even a generic when it comes to the union, because there's different contracts.
Mm-hmm. Also, the
You
union
know,
doesn't even have a minimum pay.
um, I guess they kind of came up with something depending on the contract. They won't have you working for free in the union,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
Um, but it ranges from, I think the lowest on a union project I got paid was 25 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten paid also maybe up to 58, 59 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been anywhere between that range. But I think there was also one project I worked on where it was just a day rate of like 125 for 12 hours, which is not
It's not good. You don't have to sugarcoat it. It's trash. Wait, this is a Hollywood film?
no, 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 no. This
Oh, it's an
was a
independent.
project that was like on a local network. So it
Okay,
wasn't a
that's still trash.
it wasn't like a huge, huge, huge project.
Yeah.
It wasn't nothing in theaters or on a major network. But yeah, when it comes to union projects, it just depends on the contract and depending on what position you are, sometimes you can negotiate your rate. If you're a personal means you are specifically working on one person, that person brought you in as their artist and you only work for them. You only do their makeup. Or sometimes department heads, which is meaning people who are over that entire department, sometimes they're able to negotiate their rates as well. But it's just very hard for me to give a one specific amount um, because even like I said in the union, the rates vary depending on the contract. And people can decide for themselves if that's something that they want to do or not.
What do you look for in a script?
Okay. So when breaking down a script, you're actually reading the script and taking notes. And I take me specifically when I see a new character, I highlight it or write that person down. If it says their age, their ethnicity, if it explains what type of person they are, you know, I pay attention to all that because that helps with coming up with the look for the character. And if there's like a fight scene, maybe what that person has been through and going through. Like if they just worked a 15-hour shift as a mom of two at a diner and she's a single mom and she's getting off in the middle of the night. When she gets off in the middle of the night, she's not going to look glamorous. She's going to look tired and makeup help with making that person look tired because we may shoot it at 10 o'clock in the morning and she's super refreshed, so, or if it's a basketball game, football game, they need to be sweaty. If it's hot outside, if it's cold outside, like all of that plays. If the person cries, um, you look for all of those different type of things when it comes to makeup. Because I even had a character who he's a teenager and is supposed to be in Miami, but we shot it in Orlando. Still hot, right? It's supposed to be him living in the projects. They don't have any AC, but the boy doesn't sweat naturally. He doesn't sweat in his face. He sweats all on his body, but his face does not produce any sweat. So I had to keep running in and making him look sweaty throughout the day, each time we film, because that's what it called for. That's what the director also wanted. And that's another thing too, when breaking down the script, to take notes on, you may have an idea of what something want, but it don't just depends on your idea. It goes by what the creator and the writer sees and what the director sees. And so when you have meetings with them, if you have a question about something or how they may want something to look, then you can address it also in those meetings.
So how do you make someone look sweaty? What do you use?
Well, people use different things. Some people use just water because sometimes the actor may say, I don't want anything on me but water. They may be highly allergic to things and they don't want to test out if what you have may break them out or not. So they may want just water. Um, or rose water is nice as well to use. Something that actually stays, and what I used on the boy or the teenager for that show was baby oil gel, the green one. And I just stipple it on, which is a makeup term for me to say stipple, but put it on.
It's okay. No, we want you to use makeup terms. We want to learn more. Please inform us.
Yeah, and little like dots on his forehead or make it go around his neck and up. Some people sweat behind their ears just so it can look more believable that it's his. And I think it turned out well on camera. So yeah.
So you mentioned working with directors. Can you talk more about the prep process in working with directors, like what looks you're going to choose?
Well, yeah, that like I said, that all goes down into like breaking down the script. And even like when breaking down the script, when there's a new day, you take a note of that. And when it's later in the day, or if they're going to a different event in that same day, you take a note of that. And so it's like asking the director, like, hey, are they still having on what they had on before at this next event? Or are they changing for this? And it's the next day, you know, is you may be able to come up with another look for the next day. Or some characters would have the same look all the time. That's their look, and that's still something to discuss with the director. And sometimes the creator is in there, but if not, the director, as far as the development of each character. It can even be the continuity. So continuity means, um, I'm trying not to talk too much film talk. I know this is Black film space, but we may have some listeners who may not know what
Yeah,
continuity
go
is.
for it. Go for it.
Um, but continuity is basically like keeping up with what's happening because you don't shoot in order. So you may shoot the beginning of this same day today, but finish or continue shooting it next week. And then jump back to before that happened the next day. And, so you don't shoot in order. So you have to keep up with the looks and how making sure it stays right. Like you may watch a movie or a TV film and the glass is full, but then they cut somewhere else and then they come back and the glass is empty.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cut somewhere else and then the glass is back full.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't see a waitress come and refill their glass.
Mm-hmm.
So that's continuity. That's keeping up with how much water was in this glass to keep the scene looking like we shot it all at once. And so when it comes to the continuity, that's things to discuss also with the director. So you can keep up with each look for each day or for each time of the day, depending on the extent. Even the healing of a bruise. Sometimes as makeup artists, or a lot of times as makeup artists, we want to keep the authenticity of it's the next day, this bruise won't be gone. Or the next day, this bruise won't be this color. But at the same time, we work for the director and the creators and the writers. If the next day they want the bruise to magically be gone, it's their call, but it's our call to bring it up to them. So that's something else that, you may bring up in a meeting. Hey, this bruise from this fight, how long do you want this bruise to last in the storyline?
So when you're working on these studio Hollywood type of projects, with experienced directors, how much do they know about makeup artistry?
I think it varies by director, you know. Um, a lot of them will just trust you in your judgment, because that's why they hire us. They may say, hey, I don't want it to last too long, but the coloration and how you make that by day 3, it should be gone, but I'll put it in your hands to, do it. But then there's another project I worked on where they wanted to see a test of how each day each bruise will look. And I had to have a test model come in, we around the same complexion as the actor, and they had to approve each bruise. And that's another thing with continuity. If we're shooting this day, this bruise, and we come back and shoot this same bruise 2 days from now, I have to try my best to make it look exactly the same of how it looked 2 days ago. And but as far as each director's makeup artistry, I will tell you this: the from my experience, women directors pay attention to makeup more, but And especially women who are also actors, but also direct. I think they get the full picture, and they really pay attention to makeup when, and not to say that guys don't, but a lot of times guys is like, hey, I trust you. You got it. Not to say women don't trust us. It's just that we look at those things naturally. We pay attention to it naturally more. Yeah.
I had directed a short film a
Hmm.
few years ago, and the makeup artist was asking me all these questions. I mean, I didn't know shit. Like I didn't know anything. I was just like,
What type of questions?
I can't remember.
Okay.
I guess like colors. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know what to choose, and it was like my film's like a it's a romantic comedy. It's not. There's no fighting. It's just kind of like quote unquote natural looks, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm just curious to know like how you and the director work together to choose, let's, because you've been talking about like bruises and sweating, but just kind of like those natural looks. Like how do you choose what colors you're gonna wear? Like how does that process work?
Well, I think it all helps with costumes and makeup too. Like you figure out the story. Say if she's just going to dinner or she's going to work. Um, well, what is she wearing? Okay, well, I feel that this shadow and this lip will pair well with that. And then some directors, the actors come on set and they're like, okay, let's roll. And then you have other directors or creators of the show who is like, I want a makeup test of every single person, send a picture, or they come in physically to look at the actress or actor and approve it. Their makeup. They may say, oh, I like it, but I think the lip is too much. And then you adjust. And then I've had directors who they don't they don't care for a test or anything like that either. You do you, and they're like, y'all ready? Let's roll. So it can go either way, and either way is fine. It's a part of the job.
How long should it take for a makeup artist to apply makeup on an actor?
I think that depends too. Is some it could be easy for somebody to say, oh, it shouldn't take more than an hour. But that person, you don't know their face, their condition when they're if you don't get a test, there's plenty of times somebody sits in your chair and you have to figure it out. And they may want someone who looks like they have on no makeup, but this person has so many red spots all over their face. So you have to color correct, you have to work with their skin if it has some indentions or, you know, whatever. So it could somebody's face could take 15 minutes and another person could take an hour and 30 minutes because I also have to cover her tattoos, you know, that's on the back of her neck. And she has an updo and a spaghetti strap shirt. So it's going to show, so I say it varies. And then some people, nails, makeup is nails. Nails is makeup territory. So I might have to paint her toes and her nails too. So that has to be factored in when it comes to doing makeup also. And there's a time I had to tan someone's entire body.
Damn.
So that has to be taken into the time as well. I had to do all of her legs, her chest, her back, her arms, everything. And she had to be like tanned. Like it wasn't just a little buff and you can go. And it had to look natural. Like this is her natural tan. So that's why I said it varies. And even when it can vary for men too, because sometimes we're laying facial hair and this guy is clean shaven, but he's supposed to look like he has on a full beard. And you have to lay that hair and make it look like it's growing out of his face. And that takes time.
Wait, that wouldn't fall under the hair department?
No, that's on the face. So it's anything from the hairline down is makeup.
Wow, seems like a pretty big task.
Yeah, even like say the character has to have a full sleeve tattoo and he has no tattoos on. Or he has a full sleeve, but his arm needs to look like he doesn't have tattoo. That's still makeup, and that takes time.
So
So
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so it really does varies depending on the character.
Got you. So I feel like um, sometimes it feels like from a director's and producer's point of view, it feels like the makeup artists are holding up the set. So I'm wondering um, how producers and makeup artists and directors, or how we can collaborate on time management so expectations are being met.
Yeah, and there's times when, they may push the call time up so you can have more time to work on that actor before, but then that has to get approved by the UPM. And for those who don't know who the UPM is, that's the money person, you know, um, to see if it's okay for you to come in earlier so everybody can get done by the time it's time to start rolling. And I know one thing is I hate to feel like anyone is waiting on me. So, but each depending, and then if you explain to them, hey, he has a full arm tattoo and it has to look like he doesn't have a tattoo. And those are questions you ask to talk to the directors about, because tattoos are tricky because you have to get them approved. So if these tattoos are not approved, they have to be covered legally, because you don't want that tattoo artist to sue the production. And then they're going to look at, well, who was over making sure that it got approved? Makeup didn't tell us that this didn't get approved, you know, or didn't bring it up to us. So it's makeup's responsibility to say something like, hey, they have a tattoo. Would you like for it to show or not? And if not, we need to get these approved if you do want them to show. And if not, then we need the time to be able to cover them. And then sometimes they may say we don't have the time, but then they may have to pay for the extra manpower for somebody to cover, more than one person to help with covering this tattoo. So it can get out in enough time. And there's times it's not just one person we're working on. There's 10 people that got all need to be done at the same time for this first shot. And you have 4 makeup artists in the trailer, maybe. It's a lot of people. They have to go through makeup, hair, and costumes, not just us.
Yeah.
And and then another thing is, most of the time you don't have the actors' undivided attention. They're talking with the other actors, or they may be on the phone, or they may be rehearsing their lines to one another. And so, you're battling with them looking to the left when you need them to be looking straight, but you're still trying to work it out anyway. Um, because they need to rehearse, and you get that, so, and then like sometimes we're therapists or a friend.
Mm-hmm.
People have personal lives as well. And they come in that trailer sometimes, or the makeup room, and they're, discussing it with us. But sometimes they might need a moment to step away, depending on whoever may have just lost their mom or their dad, and they're still here at work trying to hold it together, and that plays a factor in time of getting them out of there. But I think a lot of times, if we just communicate and try to understand at the same time, I get it. Time is money. That's something that was a bonus question when I was in school. Time is money. Money is time. Time is money. But we're all people at the same time too. Now, if you're just being a jerk and holding up coming in, but then again, if there is an actor who's like, I'm going to come when I come, then communicate that, hey, such and such hasn't made it into me yet. And their time to come was supposed to be 9, and it's 9:15. And I'm supposed to get an hour with them. Now it's 45 minutes.
When you're on set, who do you communicate with the most?
I guess it depends on my position when I'm on set. If I'm a key, I communicate with the department head the most, because that's how the flow should be. If I'm department heading, um, I may communicate with one of the ADs the most, if in knowing and AD means assistant director, um, the most as far as what's coming up next, if anything changed in the schedule. Um, and I also, just in general, communicate with the PAs, which are the production assistants, a lot, because makeup artists, we don't get walkies. So we don't know what's going on unless we ask or somebody come and tell us. And most of the time we're asking. Um, Especially if they have us holding somewhere where we can't hear that, is cut, or just hear the talk of what's going on. Sometimes we may have to duck off somewhere depending on the size of the room and how much space or how many people is allowed it in there, or even if it's a closed set or not. Um, Kudos to, amazing production assistants or PAs. I've met some great ones who on their own kept us in the loop, like, hey, we're moving on to this scene now. Hey, they decided to jump down to this scene, and then we're going to come back from this scene to this scene next, because we don't get to hear those things because we don't have a walkie.
Do you want a walkie?
No.
Okay.
I will tell you, I worked on a project where our department headed the project, and they gave me a walkie. And no, I liked the walkie. I turned it on in the trailer in the mornings so I can hear about how much more time I had. If they're like, oh, we're almost there, we're 10 minutes away. I'm like, I liked that part. And I liked the walkie to be able to call my own transpo. And I didn't have to find somebody to call me a van. So I can get a ride, but most of the chatter that's on the walkies, over 90%, I would say, is about stuff that don't pertain to the makeup team. So, and if they want something for us to know, it's kind of been that thing like, hey, go tell makeup this is how far away we are, or we need this person now that's been moved up. Like, they have someone that just come and tell us, because most of the chatter that's on the walkies is not us. And it's heavy. We already got a lot of stuff to carry. Those walkies are heavy. So my preference is I'm good. Mm-mm. I prefer a group chat. I mean, a group text. I'm cool with that. Hey, moving on in a group text. Perfect. Let's go. Some people prefer the PA come to them. I'm fine with the PA texting me. We're moving on, or moving on to this thing. That is good with me.
What's your relationship like with the hair department?
Well, the hair department, we work kind of hand in hand. It's so funny. It's like we're two different departments, but we're both in the same trailer or in the same makeup room. So you have to have a good rapport with them as well. It's weird. It's like we're two different teams, but we're teammates at the same time. And a lot of times you discuss with the hair department to help with coming up with your looks. It's like, hey, for this day, this is what she's wearing. What do you plan to do? And then it kind of help you with developing the look as well. Or like I said, I had an actress that had a tattoo on the back of her neck. So I would like to know, is that something is her hair gonna be down? Or are you gonna have it up? So I'll know I need to cover it. Sometimes I will still cover it anyway, just to cover myself. Cause there's been times, like, you learn a lot while you're on set. There's been times when they're like, hey, it's not even on the schedule. They decide they want to shoot something that's probably 2 days from now that we're supposed to shoot. And her hair is up. So, and it's like, oh, now I need to cover this tattoo. But if I went on ahead and covered it just to play it safe, then I wouldn't have had to worry about that.
When y'all are having these conversations, this is pre-production. Are you, is the director or producer bringing everybody together, or is it you just kind of having your own side conversation, figuring out?
It kind of depends on the project.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on, like, before, it depends on if the directors are like, hey, y'all figure it, I'm cool with y'all come up with, or if it's, hey, I need to see what you plan to do every time. Take a picture, send it to me, let me approve it, or bring them on set, let me see what they look like as the full package, and I'll give my stamp of approval. So it just all depends. And still, so that may be pre, or that may be, sometimes day players, they be like, hey, do what y'all do when they come in. And this is our first time seeing them the day they're going to shoot. And you may discuss with her, hey, what do you plan to do? Or they may come to us, what do you plan to do? And we do work together a lot, because I may say, hey, can I do her makeup first before you put on her wig? Because that wig is going to go on top of her hairline and you want it to blend seamlessly. Or they may say, hey, can I braid her down first and then you take her for makeup? And then by the time you're done with makeup, all I got to do is pop the wig on. Or I may say, yeah. And while you're popping that wig on, do you mind if I also paint her nails while you're doing her hair? And they may say, yeah, or they may say, can you try to do that during your time? It depends on the person.
What makes a good makeup artist? And particularly from the standpoint of a producer looking to hire a makeup artist, like how does one tell whether or not they're fit for the job?
Okay, for television and film, a lot of times we are booked based on referrals, and they've worked with that person before and they like them. So if this person refers that person, they must be, pretty legit. There's also been times I've worked with people who somebody else might not necessarily have liked, but they gave me a chance. And then they said, I'm glad I gave you a chance because you're nothing like the other person you've worked for. Um, But for something for a producer, I try to tell people when it comes to TV and film, it is your artistry, but that's not all it is about. They need to be, especially if you're going to have a leadership position, like a key or a department head or even a third. Um, and to explain that, the department head is over the department. The key is like the right hand man of the department head, or in other words, like a president and vice president, or the coach and the captain, or the sports term, is how I like to explain it. And those individuals have to be well organized because it's a lot that goes into it. It's not just doing makeup. It's having to do makeup, read the script, break down the script, take notes, purchase items, keep up with the budget, hire crew, make sure crew knows what time to come, what time to break for lunch, make sure they know what time they should be wrapping, make sure their paperwork is in, make sure their paperwork is correct, make sure their paperwork is turned in, make sure their time cards. It's like, when I explain this to people, they're like kind of looking at me with this blank stare. And then not only keep up with continuity, keep up with the pictures for each scene and write what products were used and what scene number was there. Like, it's a lot that goes into being a makeup artist for television and film. And on top of doing all that, you also show up and do makeup and plan or schedule makeup tests, and like, making sure everybody ate their breakfast and making sure you it's a lot to think about. So you have to be a good makeup artist, will be well organized. Now, if you're a department head and that's not your strength, then department heads will hire a key that is well organized to help them with that. um a people person, like I said, you're not just showing up and doing makeup. You're interacting not just with the actors, but you're interacting with the other crew members. You're interacting with the directors and the producers and the writers and the creators and the extras and the PAs and the catering. And when you're on set for 12 plus hours a day, you want it to be a good atmosphere. But you also want that person to be like well-rounded, business-oriented, well-organized, and can do makeup on top of all of that. Um, I think those are good things for directors and producers to look for, not just the artistry, but also everything else that comes with the artistry.
Yeah, the professionalism.
Yeah. Mm.
But what about the artistry? Like I don't know anything about makeup artistry. If I'm an independent filmmaker, I don't have anybody to refer to,
Mhm.
and I just put something on the internet and I get a bunch of responses. Like, how do I know who's a good makeup artist and who's not?
Just based off of the images that they've sent you,
Yeah,
or their resume
exactly.
and the images?
Just the images.
If you don't know for yourself, then it may be good for that person to ask someone else who may be better at looking, because, I get what you're saying. If I look at, or if I'm examining something that I have no clue about, if somebody is giving me a blueprint of a building, for architecture, and I get all these blueprints, and whose blueprint is the best, I'm looking at these blueprints, it's like looking at a foreign language. I wouldn't know. But I'm like, oh, that looks nice, I guess, but maybe just the assistance of another eye, of to help out when it comes to that. But I think most of the time guys can, or it could be female, because I know females who don't really know anything about makeup either, but you can kind of tell if something looks off. Like
How do you tell?
they're like if their foundation on their face is a completely different color than the rest of their body, that's off. Or if the makeup looks too strong, it looked like it's too much on. But if the character calls for that, it depends on the script. But if you want something like, okay, it looks nice, it looks clean, let's go with it, that could be a way to just go off of it. But things like the foundation on the face not really matching, that's a big one. It don't match the rest of the body like completely, is a big red flag.
Got you, got you. What about your skill set? Like, become I'm sure you've improved over the years.
Oh yes,
So
if you
when
look
you
at when
first
I
started
first
off,
started versus
what mistakes were you making, or what have you learned over the last 10 years or so?
um as time goes on, different things, like at one point in time, the very, very, very strong, dark, strong eyebrows was a thing. So I'm not going to say I never did it, but I have evolved from that. Uh, what else is something? It's just everything. Like when I first started out, just looking at blending to how blending is now. But you have to start somewhere. You have to practice, and everybody gets better, with time, if they, put forth the effort towards it being better.
Hmm. And when you watch like movies and TV shows, do you notice the makeup? Because I never noticed the makeup. I never noticed the makeup, but I noticed the cinematography and I noticed shot selections and stuff like that. So what do you notice, like bad makeup or really good makeup? What do you see?
I notice when I watch TV or film, like I like what they did with her makeup. It goes with her character or her personality. Or I may be like, oh, they shouldn't have did that. Like whatever it may be. Um, and it's to the point to where my dad even maybe like, oh, did you watch such and such? Did you see her eyebrows? Like I even got my daddy looking now when he used to never look before. So but that is something that I do look at. I try not to do it too much, but I think a lot of people in that work in our industry, especially in your field, you pay attention to it more than others.
And what are some of the differences between working on a photo shoot and working on a video shoot or movie, I should say.
Sometimes when it comes to photo shoots, because if it's going to be flash photography, it picks up differently than in TV and film. So depending, you might have to add a little more so they don't get washed out with the flash. Um, or do a little more of the highlighting and contouring to shape their face so it doesn't come off being flat with the flash. And then when it comes to film, depending, it picks up everything nowadays, especially. So you want to try to make it look as nice as possible, but sometimes, you can just do the best you can do with the canvas that you have, you know?
But
Mhm.
you know, I think when I hired a makeup artist for my short film, I'm pretty sure she didn't have a lot of film experience. Let's say somebody's browsing, looking for makeup artists, and they notice this person mostly has experience in weddings and photo shoots. Like, is that a different skill set, or is it just a matter like what is the difference between those two in regards to like hiring? Like, is that a risk hiring somebody who hasn't worked on a film set before?
Not necessarily. I think I know I keep saying it depends, but sometimes it just does. Like you may have somebody who does weddings. Sometimes weddings and photo shoots is a little of a heavier hand than with TV and film, but then there's times, depending on the character, you might need that hand in a film. The best I can say, because there are even artists out there who has done it before, who's turned in work that's not theirs. And a lot of times there isn't like an opportunity for the directors and producers to be like, hey, in this interview, I would like for you to do someone's makeup and I would like to see how it comes out. A lot of times the hiring is based off of photos, resume, and referrals. Um, so that is tricky, but I don't want to count somebody out by saying because they do photography and and weddings, then they're not capable of doing film. Because I've know a lot of artists who come from the photography world and the wedding world, um, and has done great and do great in TV and film. But it may be on an individual type of basis. So I feel like you're asking me this for future, for when you're hiring for your next big project. And I feel like my answers is not helping you.
I'm working on it. I'm digging right now. I'm
I
digging. No, this
I
is good.
see that, but it's difficult to answer that question because everybody is different. Makeup is an artistry. There's people, for me it is, but there's people that go to school, for makeup, and you can see if they've had any kind of training. And then there's people who do get hired and they're like, hey, you're not what we thought you would be. And they've had to get someone else, you know.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking questions so people can avoid that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I get that completely. But some is hmm. I don't know. I feel like that's a question for maybe an I don't want to say for a producer or a director that, hires has done this for a while, and what is their niche and how their eye into looking for the right artists, but I think if there's a way to say, do you have any references or people that I can contact? Because most of the when I've interviewed, they've asked that question. Either I've been referred from somebody that they've worked with and who's also worked with me. So they just go on the strength of that person, or they ask if I've never met them before and I submitted a resume and they ask for references. And I try to give them people who are a producer that I've worked for, or a makeup artist that's, that department head more than me, or even an AD. So because they can attest to not only my artistry, but also how my rapport on set is. That I would advise for anybody who's looking for an artist and all they have is the pictures to go off of, but they're still not 100% sure, that ask the person for some references. Do they have any, pictures of the monitor from when they were filming as well? just so you can kind of see how did the look, when you worked on these projects on set, or even from the some continuity pictures. I send continuity pictures sometimes so they can just see not just a professional image that was edited, but a raw image also of how this person looked. Hmm.
When it comes to artistry, how much does a makeup artist need to know about color and chemistry? Like, how important is that when developing your skill set?
If some people are self-taught, I'm one of those people. I didn't go to school for it, but I've always thought about going to school, not a full school, but just to stay abrupt. And I've done classes, like the union also, they have classes here and there for knowing how to do certain things when it comes to TV and film, like applying the bruises or the scratches or the bullet wounds or simple prosthetics pieces, and how to apply tattoos, and some stuff you learn on the job, and some stuff you can take a class for. And there's people who's done the full course class, and that's fine, and they teach color theory, and they teach about different skin types, and it's important to learn about those things. I even like to ask, hey, are you allergic to latex? Because then there's products that may have it in it, and you don't want that person to break out. Or there may be a sponge you use or gloves you put on that have latex. Like, it's it's all making sure that you care for your client. You ask, hey, do you have oily skin, or do you typically have dry skin? They're sitting in your chair for the first time. You don't know how their face will react or do as time passes. Because a lot of times we do their makeup early in the morning, and that makeup lasts all the way till the nighttime. And so you only get to do touch ups. And maybe at lunch, you could try to fix up something as quick as possible before we're back in from lunch. And I mean, it's a task to make somebody look fresh faced all day. And if it's cold, if it's hot, all of that plays a factor as well into how long the makeup stays. They're eating, they're napping, like all of that plays a factor. So, but learning the color theory or learning about color, different undertones, um, is important to learn and gain knowledge of.
So, what kind of brands do you purchase for work? Like, are you purchasing the same type of brands that you might find at a Sephora, or is it a special type of brand just for makeup, just for film and TV?
For me personally, because each artist is different, I purchase makeup that you can probably find at Walmart and Target, all the way to makeup that is only available at a professional makeup store, or at Sephora, or at Ulta, or it ranges. That's why also when I said when it comes to the different skin types or how much coverage is needed, it's a lot that goes in thousands of dollars that goes into our kit. From the type of brushes, you can use inexpensive brushes to the most expensive brushes. And you can use CoverGirl, and it works amazing. And then you can use, Danessa Myricks or AJ Crimson, and those, well, is no, yeah, and those are not at Ulta. I purchased it online through those specific artist sites. Or you can purchase it through a professional makeup artist um, site. Or in Atlanta, there's a local professional makeup store that carries Danessa's makeup. So, and then there's some MAC products I have, and then there's some, you know, uh, NARS, and there's it go. I have a different array of different brands that I use, and it varies on what I decide to pick up for someone to use.
Can you name one of these stores, one of these professional makeup stores. I'm not familiar with them.
Okay. In Atlanta, there's a store called Nor Costco and the Engineer Guys. They both sell professional brand makeup and offer like a discount for makeup artists, professional makeup artists. And a lot of other brands do too, like MAC also provides it. But online, I like to also order from Friends, Friends, and also from no, Friends is the main one. Namies is another one. They're both based in California. Uh, and a lot of times with them, plus with Norcosco and the Engineer Guys, I think that the Engineer Guys just renamed. I think they switched their name to something else recently. But I think most of us who's known for them to be the Engineer Guys for the longest, we still call them that. Um, but a lot of the shows will create an account with them. So you could just order, through them and they build a production. And then sometimes production gives us a budget and, you go in and you spend and keep up with the receipts and do all of that and turn that in as well. But those are some of the ones that I like to order from. AJ Crimson is my top fave.
Thank you so much for joining us. How can we follow you on the internet?
Well, I want to say thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. I hope that I answered your questions and gave some insight, not just to you, but to the listeners as well. I can be reached on Instagram. It's Para Shardé, ITSPARASHARDE. From there, there's a website to click on for people to be able to view any images. And yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Para.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Black Film Space podcast. If you're interested in being part of our community and attending events, please visit us at blackfilmspace.com and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Black Film Space. Subscribe to our email list and podcast. All right, see you soon.